Welcome to Home, where faith and family meets. My name is Father Tim Donovan, parochial vicar here at St. Bonaventure Parish in Huntington Beach, and this is Pam Hurwitz, my co-host.
Welcome to each of you, and good to be back with you, Father Tim.
We're running into the first part of December, and every first weekend of the month, Pam and I get together and we share our hearts with you as we continue to share our families with you for the rest of the month. And just want to say, too, I really enjoy doing this podcast with you, Pam.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that, too, when you were, that's why I paused, because I was just thinking, like, how can I say how much I enjoy, I mean, Tim and I could talk literally for a long time, but to have it written into our lives now, to be able to do this, I look forward to it. So,
and I love the reflections that our families have brought into our hearts as well. I mean, so much of it has just really enriched my understanding of the scriptures and what it means to real people in real everyday life. So, and thank all of them as well.
Yes, agreed.
Especially off this Thanksgiving weekend. I know I ate too much turkey myself, but it was a beautiful time. And 26 people over my house.
26?
Yeah, family and friends. And,
Jeez.
So it's always a good party at the Donovan house. Made a specialty cocktail. It was fun. We had a good time. But we were forging forward into Advent. And for me, Advent's one of my favorite seasons of the year. But it's also a season that goes by, I think, way too quick.
Yes.
And it's just jam-packed with so much Christmas already that sometimes I'm like, sometimes I even change this channel on the radio if Christmas music's come on, because I do want to use the time as a preparation time for Christmas and then allow Christmas to be a big season of celebration all the way through into January. But I think I love Advent because it so matches like what's happening in around us as well. Like that colder, kind of darker, bundled up, kind of retreating type of feel that happens in the winter. It is getting a little cooler here finally, thank God.
Finally.
But just being able to take a moment to stop and to prepare and to ask ourselves, like, am I ready? Am I ready to meet the Lord again when he comes again? Yeah. And every year we're given these feasts and these celebrations in our church and these liturgical calendars and such. But I think it's because we need a constant reminder every single time, that a constant opportunity as well to re-prepare and to re-go again on that.
I am really glad that we're doing it, having this talk right now as at the beginning of Advent, because I think so many times if we don't become intentional right now, the Christmas truck will run us all over. And we'll kind of wake up, and it's happened to me. And I, wake up Christmas morning, and you unwrap all the presents, and the wrapping paper litters the ground, and you kind of are looking at each other like, "Dang it, we missed it this year," And not that buying gifts for those we love isn't a really beautiful part of the season, but I know that for myself and for all of us that are committed to our faith, I mean, we don't want to ever celebrate Christmas without Christ in it, and so how do we begin some practices now looking ahead to the next month? How do we put those in there, or put some intentional time in, so that we don't have that Christmas morning wake up like, "Dang it, shoot, we missed it. So I am hoping we can talk about some ideas today and get people kind of ahead and looking ahead, so they can make some decisions now about how to be more intentional during Advent.
Absolutely. I think too, people, I think on a whole, take Lent very seriously. Like, they're like, even if they're not Catholics, they're like, what am I going to give up for Lent? And you're like, you're weird, but it's good. People, so that seems to be built into our culture in some ways, this kind of preparation for Easter. But really, I think Advent has not had the same, at least in my growing up, it just wasn't emphasized like Lent was. And they're both penitential seasons. That's why we wear purple. I don't think penitential seasons are ones to whip ourselves over. But it's opportunities to say, what could I maybe forego or add to my everyday life to refocus, like you're saying, so that we don't miss the focus of the season. And I know in me, when I do really great Lents, when I really am committed to what I gave up or what I took on, that Easter is different.
Yeah.
Easter is so different, and I think this could be the same opportunity for us in Advent with ourselves, but also with our families, and maybe considering like, what could I do for 4 weeks leading up to the birth of Christ that could make me, more prepared to receive him, and yeah.
And even the term Advent now has been used sort of commercially, which is, I think, kind of catching some of us off guard too, because it was sort of these Advent calendars, they were chances to open doors and talk about some of the characters of Christmas that lead up to the birth of Christ. And now, there's all kinds of, stores and things that are using this term Advent to mean possibly, opening up doors to more gifts, or, yes, I don't know if I was telling you, but I saw that.
Wow, I haven't seen those yet.
Huh?
I haven't seen that.
Oh, yeah, Nordstrom right now has an Advent calendar in their catalog, and you open up every day a different door and you have a different perfume. So you'll be getting, prior to the gifts of Christmas, you'll be getting these perfume gifts, each one day,
wow.
as yes.
Hey, they steal all of our good stuff,
So yes, so Advent has so this idea of waiting, the world is kind of looking at it too, but again, it's all about what we're waiting for, and if we're just waiting just for Santa and just for gifts, I do feel like many times, it feels very empty at the end of that, So anyway, so yes, I know as a child, my mom used to have these Advent calendars for us, and she would really just every year, would open the little doors to Christmas, and that's such a tradition of talking about the characters and things like that, and I'm sad that I ask people about those Advent calendars, and they're like, well, those don't really exist anymore. They're just ones with, you get a different candy every day or something like that. So anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if I should say this, but I saw one at Costco a couple years back that was 1 beer per day.
Okay.
Around the world, kind of a thing. I was like, wow, this is a different way to think about it, But yeah, we do have some awesome. So we just had a family event a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Was that a couple weeks or 2? I don't even know.
Yes.
It's been so much in the last couple of days. But and one of the tools we sent all of our families home with was a manger activity. A preparation of a manger, preparation of a bed for baby Jesus, and so we had these little sushi bamboo boats. That actually worked perfectly. I think they were very cute.
Feeding trough,
Yes. And yes, a feeding trough. I look at that. Very nice. And basically, the activity goes like this: that at the dinner table or gathered together nightly, that the whole family would take a piece of hay and each hold that piece of hay, or each take their own piece of hay, and kind of share in Thanksgiving, maybe something of goodness or beauty or something that they saw that day that reminded them of Christ, and they would share that with each other and kind of become aware. And I think that way, and then after they've all done that, then maybe offer a little prayer or something, and then place the piece of hay into the manger. And after 24 days of doing that, or more days, during our Advent around that, then they would have a prepared bed for Jesus, and when he would come on Christmas, and when he does come on Christmas, he has a place to lay his head that we prepared by becoming just more aware of him throughout Advent. And it's a super cute activity.
Yes.
It came out super cute.
And Jesus, for those families who are listening that came to the event, the little plush squishy Jesus you got oh my gosh, he's that's just the Jesus I hope little kids are laying down next to, because he was
there was that
precious.
One little boy who came up and who was holding on to him, kind of close to his cheek, and he and I said to him, hey, what are you going to do with baby Jesus? He says, he's going to go in my room. And I was just like, yes, that's the kind of preparation that is open to us and available.
One thing about Advent too, I think that sort of happens to us is this idea of waiting makes Advent sound kind of passive, like we're somehow, sitting back. And so I remember a few years ago, I was on an Advent retreat, and the priest, he turned it around and he was saying, I don't think Advent is so much us waiting for Jesus as it is Jesus waiting for us. And so then Advent becomes active, and how do we, like this straw activity, how do we draw close? How do we notice? And I think for families too, one of the beautiful ways to be able to kind of be noticing and looking and more actively is this idea of Emmanuel and this idea of this God with us, and just what you were talking about, just being, to really notice him in the world, notice him, like you said, in beauty, in goodness, and to be really, kind of on a Jesus hunt, almost like, how can we really try to see him and have those moments, each day or wherever where we can share. And it's crazy how our kids, they are children. I mean, they are able to really recognize him in some very profound ways. So Emmanuel, God with us. Let's talk about it. Let's share about it. Let's see how we encounter him on a day-to-day basis.
Where did I see him today?
Yes.
Because he's here. It's not a matter of if God is working, but it's a matter of where he's working. And I think that changes everything when we can take that approach to it. This first Sunday of Advent, our gospel is kind of a wake-up call to us to kind of to lift up our heads, to raise our heads. I think that's such a profound thing to me, because I see in a world and a culture where most of the time our heads are down and we're looking down, whether it's at the ground we're walking at or at our phones or at whatever it is. We have this kind of downward castness, and even it can be like in our minds, where what is the orientation of our minds or our hearts, like a downward casting, right? All the things here and the troubles and all this crazy stuff that we see on the news every day and all that kind of stuff, But Advent is an opportunity to look up, like that we have a Savior that's going to come from the clouds, from the east, who's going to come save us. And it's an awareness that we need Jesus and that Jesus is with us. Jesus is Emmanuel, rather than Jesus being one who is far off and is not entering our situations or our realities. One of the crazy parts about Christmas is that Jesus entered the poorest reality. Jesus entered the darkest place, which would have been the cave or where they would have put the animals or wherever that ended up being in reality. Yeah. He entered that place because that's where he wanted to start, so that he could draw us all back to the Father through that action, And when we can start to see that and acknowledge it and kind of call it out in each other, I think that's really that preparation, that active preparation, the active seeking or going to the Lord who's waiting for us, but waiting for us in the midst of our everyday lives, not in the midst of, or waiting until Christmas Day or whatever.
I really, to encourage families, to, if you don't have one, to somehow, get or make a nativity, and have that in your home, as, somewhere where you have that as a focus in the midst of all your other holiday decorations and things, I just put, you guys know I was in Europe. And so I had got this really beautiful, my mom actually purchased it for me, this really beautiful image of Mary holding Jesus. And I put it in my entryway with just a simple little sign that I made that says the weary world rejoices, and every time I walk in and out of my house, I'm seeing that image in the midst of all the other images I'm seeing of Christmas. And it's been such a good reminder for me, so I know at a few parishes, even one that I spent a lot of time at, La Purísima, we had the families just literally take shoe boxes home and just find things. It's crazy because the manger scene is so simple. It's really, really so simple. Like you were saying, a cave, a feeding trough, and so to even just take things from your home, at La Purísima, they had to take this home, and they could only use things from their home to make the actual, creche. Then and the things that they were, there was spaghetti on the roof, and there was, but so profoundly simple again, because sometimes we see these nativities out that are just like glitz and you're thinking, oh man, it did not look like that. I just know it did not look like that. So I think the images that are in our homes during Christmas season are very important. And so how can we, I also know some, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this tradition, but there is this elf. What is it called? The
Elf on the Shelf.
elf on the shelf.
Well, he's also in like ball jars, and you see him all over. Some people do that tradition, right? That's just
Yes, but I've also heard people, so instead of doing the elf on the shelf, they'll do like the kings or pieces of the nativity that you have to find as you get closer to Christmas. And then you hide those, and then you get them and you add them to the actual, to the actual stable. So each day you're looking for a different piece, and then you add it to eventually have Jesus, and so there are ways to also take some of these traditions and add, our Catholic spirituality to them, but I do think having a nativity is, or making one or something is something very, I'm going to be honest too. My mom is obsessed with nativities. Okay. I have, her whole life. And so she has gotten them. And there's so many different ways that the nativity has been,
hundreds, thousands.
Yes.
I mean, from all
different countries, painted, carved. And so it's a big thing for us. She has all hers. And so I remember when I got my nativity, and then I'll never forget when my daughter got married, and we picked her up from the airport after her honeymoon, and I'll never forget, she gave me the biggest hug when she got off the plane, and she just whispered in my ear, "Mom, I got my nativity." And I just was over there the other day, and she had it out and all the pieces. And I just think that's a good tradition for us to start with our kids. And, if you have a kid that's getting married or whatever, to give that piece that it just tends to every year be brought out and as a reminder. So.
Wow, that's that. You didn't say that to her, like, make sure you get that piece when you go to Europe or whatever it was. They were, it's like, that's not what you did, right? But it was in there already because it had been such a part of your guys' life, and it's so important to your mom and to you, probably.
Yes, and she had gotten married in October, so she was just thinking like her first Christmas. I mean, she needed to have.
I should get one. I should get one for my office.
Yes,
definitely, so I can be out during Christmas for sure. I know in the Faith and Family Collective as well has an Advent tool preparing for Christmas, which I think is very beautiful. I saw it the other day at our family event, and so well put together too, and so beautiful that I think sometimes that helps us to pray when things are well done, you know, and beautiful and well thought out. And so tell us a little bit about that and how to get our hands on that, because I know that we have a week to get ready here.
Yes. Well, it's you can go to Faith and Family Collective, and it's actually it has the 10 characters from 10 of the characters from Christmas, of the journey to Christmas, and I'm really happy with it because it has a way to kind of display those. It has like a rope and clothespins that you can kind of count down as you get to Jesus, but it also has stars, and that each night as you do, you put a star in your tree too, as we're being led to Jesus. But besides just those pieces, it has discussion questions, and I think that sometimes we need prompts to kind of, we know the story, but how do we take it and relate it to our own life? And then there's actually a parent piece too, where, let's say for the Mary card, where the parents, it actually has a prompt for them to share about what was it like when you found out you were expecting, and were you afraid, and what, and so really trying to take the story and kind of insert ourselves into it. And the last card actually isn't Jesus. The very last card is us, because we are a part of the spiritual genealogy. We are a part of the Christmas story. And so how can we take this good news and now share it? So anyway, yes, check those out, because I think it's a great tool you can do on the way towards Christmas. Or we have a tradition in our home that we have done forever, and that is that Christmas Eve is just kind of our night. We don't do any gifts. We go to Mass and have dinner, and then we always have some type of reading of the Christmas story. And so these characters, you could pass the characters out and then have each person read one, but somehow we've acted it out. We've done a million different things with this, but we always tell that Christmas story on Christmas Eve, with the lights kind of dim, and then, end by singing Happy Birthday to Jesus. So this is a tool to help you be able to do that.
I think sometimes, especially with these very, well-known parts of Scripture, the Christmas story or, the Easter story, this kind of things that we've kind of like, I've heard that lots of different times. And so we might not get back into the Word as much as we should,
Right.
But the Word is effective. It says it's alive. It's always relevant to a different part of us because we are different every time we read the Word. The Word is alive, though, and it's going to meet us in that different part every time. And maybe there's a part of this story this year that's going to touch a different part of you. To actually get back into the Word, the actual text, is a really important thing. I know, even me as a priest, preaching on these different occasions over and over again, there's always something else there. There's always more to be able to dive into and to allow that to come to life in us and in our families and such. And so just kind of allowing the Word to permeate. I know we had a couple of families on who do Lectio Divina with each other, just prayerful reading of the Scriptures for every week with each other and see what comes up. And they're always kind of, they always teach each other so much because it's touching on a different part of us each and every time it comes up, and in identifying maybe even with characters.
And if you're doing that too, how powerful is it then when the Word becomes flesh? That this, this prophecy, these things that we talked about, it is now amongst us. And that in itself is just mind-boggling, And one other tradition I would like to share, because this is something we actually started last year during Advent, and we just had a Thanksgiving board game night, and we were talking about how we were going to do it this year because we had decided this is going to be a forever one. Is we just decided last year to pick 4 or 5 people that we wanted to let them know how much of a wonderful example they've been for us in our own lives. And some of them, maybe someone who's gone through something, and we've been able to and they've really witnessed to us through that, or it just, we, love them like crazy, or, whatever it was. And so last year we picked 4 different people, and we got these poster boards, and we wrote on each one just a little message to them about what they meant to us. And then we packed up in our car and took these poster boards, and we started driving around to these different people's homes, and with them having no idea, except they just heard this knock at the door. And so then when they'd opened the door, we sang a couple Christmas carols to them, and then let them know how they were kind of this Emmanuel for us. And that how they, thank you for being this image of Christ to us. And, for what, and each one was a little bit different. We read that to them after we sang, and then we hugged them and said good night. And so many of them were like, no, you have to come in, and da da da. And we were like, no, like we don't want you to bless us now and have to upside down your house to make hot chocolate or whatever. We just wanted you to know that we really see Jesus in you, and thank you. And so we and then we hop back in the car, and you're laughing all the way to the next place, and then did that for 4 different people, and it was so beautiful, and it was very simple, and we just, like I said, just writing something. You don't even have to write it; you could just tell them at the door, and singing a couple songs, and then just sharing with them, how they have really touched your lives, and that. For those people, I cannot even say what, because so many times I think too, like we say we're thankful for people. We do a litany at Thanksgiving, a family of this or that, but it's nice every once in a while to tell people why, why, what you see in them, the people that have, really had an impact on your life. What is it? That they have done or they're doing that you notice, and that is an example for you. So that was a very powerful, and so we've already decided who we're doing this year. So join us in the tradition.
Man, I think what's beautiful about that too is that sometimes when people are going through things and witnessing, they don't know they're doing that.
So true.
And they don't
So
know
true.
that Christ is active in those moments. And those can be very difficult moments in some people's lives. I've witnessed that too here. Like you say this, something that you're inspiring me by this, the way that you're loving when it would be very difficult to do that, or whenever something is, turning around your life. And it's good for us to acknowledge that for people, because it might be the first time that they've actually acknowledged it in themselves too. When we've had the courage to say to them, thank you for that, or I value you, or I love you, or, for however I see Christ in you, they can start to see Christ in that then in themselves. Because often we don't see it in ourselves, the good in ourselves, or the way Christ is working through us.
And even, sometimes we think, are our kids too young? I mean, how do we start that kind of a thing? But it's like, I just think so much of how, even if our kids are just in the car and they're not totally recognizing, and they're, at the doorway, and that those, images, I know for my family, one thing, we used to do always during the holidays too was, my dad would pack us up. Sometimes we'd go to Mexico and drop off gifts or wherever. And, and I've never forgotten it. You know what I mean? I've never forgotten it. And it doesn't seem Christmas now for me to not have a few of those things going on. So I would encourage you, pack up the car, do it with your husband. If you're, whatever, just let your kids be along, because that is a witness. That's such a witness, and no tradition ever goes void. It literally spills out into who our kids become. So. And
they'll want to continue those if they found them fruitful and beautiful and so many things like that. I know it's in some ways, I will always just kind of tag along with whoever family I have around or left, in kind of my life. And, but also we create traditions in parishes too. I know here there's like tradition. We've done this for 40 years or whatever it is, and they're very strong, about that. And like, it's almost like you're like, the whole thing turns upside down if you don't do it, or we've always done the Advent wreath like this. Well, it's like, well, maybe we can't do it exactly like that this year with construction or however it is, but that we still want to do that in some way. So it just shows the power of that tradition.
Yeah. And tell us what you're doing at St. Bonaventure for Advent.
So not a tradition, but so each week, or not each week, but each month, all of the clergy get together here at St. Bonaventure, and we talk about all of the readings for the upcoming month, and we talk about what we want to preach about collectively, and at least a theme to kind of direct us in that way. And every once in a while, it lines up very beautifully to do a kind of a series of talks. So like during the summer when we had John 6, all of the talks on the Eucharist, we actually broke up the liturgy of the Eucharist and preached about that for 6 weeks long, which was really beautiful.
Yes.
And it really built on each other, and the people were, growing in their understanding and stuff. So this Advent, we're doing a preaching series as well. Okay. And it's the 4 R's of Advent, I'm calling it. And those 4 R's are realize, retreat, repent, and receive.
Beautiful.
And so in this first Sunday, this realize is kind of it's lifting up your heads, coming out of yourself, coming out of our preoccupations, maybe in our self-focuses, and recognizing that we have a Savior, and that not that we just have one, but that we need one. Yeah. That Jesus is coming not just for fun or so we could hold him as a little baby, but he's coming because we need him. Yeah. Yes. And we desire him. And so, and when we can come out of ourselves and recognizing that, there's such a peace that comes from that, because no longer is my life just about all the things that I can handle or do or take care of by myself. But now it's like we have a God who wants to be intimately with us and within us and that kind of stuff. And so as Advent goes, we're actually wanting to do a mini retreats on Sunday for our people.
That's awesome.
Like they come to Mass, it should be a mini retreat, like a retreating from the world. Like this is preparing for Advent. That's how the Church has given it to us. Actually, they say that the liturgy is the catechetical tool of the Church. That's the place we're taught. Yeah. Everything that we need is given to us in the liturgy.
That should be what.
And so sometimes we've forgotten that, right? It's like, no, we're going to keep going through every book and through all of our younger grades, but no, the Church is the liturgy every Sunday is the catechetical tool. Like everything that the Church gives us in the readings and the prayers and everything on a Sunday is everything we need for salvation. Which is pretty awesome to think about that, and what a gift it is to be able to be given that each week and to use the Mass on a Sunday as an opportunity for retreat. And we've decided here as clergy that we really want to invest in our people in that way. This is the number one place I preach to let's say between 800 to 1,200 people a weekend.
That's an opportunity. That's opportunity.
That's way more ministry than I do the entire week long. By far.
Yeah.
And so if I don't spend time preparing and to give a message that means something and that, is relevant to the season, then we're missing the opportunity with 1,200 people. And so I try to do my best to bring as best as I can my heart and the Holy Spirit and all of that kind of stuff into Sundays. And so we're hoping with this series that we're doing is that people will be able to enter it with open hearts and that it will prepare them at that final Sunday before Easter, before Christmas, to really receive Jesus anew and again into their lives, but also to receive each other as Christ. This is such an opportunity in this season to say, hey, like this Christ is not just, in his person over there, but he's in each one of us as well, like made in his image and likeness. Like, I think that's really powerful too.
And I think it's great that you guys were so intentional also of starting ahead of time and picking 4 themes and now working on them. And that, again, really, just as it does for us in our homes as we, are trying to celebrate Advent, how much that will spill out into your community. And I also want to say I had the blessing of being at Mass here in your hall a couple weeks ago. And I walked in and it just almost like took my breath away for a minute because, it just so many times, we're in these big churches and, it almost seems sometimes, like you can't super connect with the community. It's so large or what, but it just felt so intimate to come in there. And so to those of you at St. Bonaventure who are feeling like you're shoved in a church hall, it was beautiful to me. Okay. It was beautiful to me. And I could really see that. And just your prayer that you have also that you're praying together about the construction that really had, that moved me as well. And I joined you in that. And, but you too are waiting right now as a parish, is waiting but not, passively, actively. You still can be retreating and doing these things as you prepare to go into your new home. And so that was a witness to me that night. So thank you, St. Bonaventure Parish.
And thank you for that reminder, because sometimes when we're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like that, See, that's another thing, right? You're just being able to call out what we're not seeing because our faces are too deep in it,
Yeah.
But I've noticed that in our people too, the people who have stayed around, because there are a number of people who have gone to other places. But the people who have stayed, though, there's just a real more simplicity and kind of embrace of that. And I feel like the worship has purified it a little bit. And kind of the focus of it being back on those things rather than maybe the building we're in, but real church being built among our people. And how beautiful, too, to spring back into a beautiful place with beautiful things and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully it'll be a joyous celebration. Yeah,
to go back. Yes.
Go back into it.
Now, another thing I was thinking is in speaking, a lot to families during this time of the season, I'm surprised how little we have remembered about the Advent wreath. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like more and more when I ask families about Advent wreaths, they look at me like I've got 3 noses or something. I'm like, no, this is something that happened, and these Advent wreaths, actually the tradition of counting down was actually something that was started in homes, and that people lit candles and that was something that started in actual people's homes, and then the church adopted, and so I want to also remind us, I think it's powerful for us, even if we don't have the wreath, the whole thing, but to light candles, and this idea about the light of the world coming, and it's just such a good image. I've been in, not that I'm encouraging you to do this with your kids, but I've been in someone's home where they actually had all of us go into the bathroom, and turn off all the lights. So it was completely dark, and then they just lit a candle, and then they were doing a little bit of a sharing about this idea of, this light of the world. And it was, it was like when you are somewhere that it's completely dark, it is so chaotic. You can't be in there very long. You go crazy, And so just the idea of even that small light being able to illuminate, was a powerful teaching, a way to teach. So that's just another image for families I think we could really use, whether, I know a lot of the parishes give out little books for Advent with the readings. And even if you don't have a wreath, you can, go home and very easily make one. Just literally, we don't have boughs of evergreen.
And they don't have to be purple and,
yes,
and
no, candles,
rose-colored candles. They can be all white.
Yes.
It's something that, it's such a great symbol, an image of the season that reminds us. Just as that image in your front door reminds you of that reason, this is a great reminder. If it's sitting on our dinner table or we're amidst it all the time, we can really be reminded about what we're doing and why.
Yeah. One of my favorite Advent memories ever, but it was hard to pull off, so I don't know that but we did, with my bigger family, we gathered for 4 weeks one year, and we actually each took a Sunday, and everybody kind of presented theirs in their own way, and we had some kind of a small meal, and again, Christmas was different that year. Christmas was different that year for all of us. Just, for us talking about those things, but even just the gathering, even us just seeing each other that much, and so that's another, idea is to, if you are able to, even to a couple Sundays or just, to get with your family and just put the focus on, to get with your family and talk, about Christ and read, have some kind of a reflection, or we also have done things too where we, one year I remember, I don't even know if this is so bizarre. I have done very bizarre things, but we did the giving tree, the story of the Shel Silverstein. So just idea, that's kind of that story, Christ kind of giving everything he had, and then, basically to the stump, and so we acted that out, and one year, and had, we did like a little, everybody had to take a part in it and read it or whatever. And then we talked about how we could compare that to, Christ coming and then his, eventually dying, and, how he gave everything to us, and that was one year, a Christmas message. But, there's ways to make some of those scriptures and those passages and things come alive by having different people read them and talk about them.
Wonderful. I think our hope, and I know we're both hoping this, is that we do one thing maybe this Advent.
Yes.
To choose a thing and to stick with it, even if it doesn't look like it's maybe producing fruit for the first couple days or weeks we're doing it, But I think that's the best one, when we can stick sometimes those things out, and because it does change us. I know, like, even when I give up something for Lent and I'm like, oh, I want to give this up already, but when I don't know, I'm going to do this for the Lord because he's done so much for me, that it does change that experience. And we hope that each one of our families, and we'd love to hear about them too.
Yes.
As you share them with us, we share them with our families here on Home. And just because we all are better together, I think.
Yeah.
We all learn from each other, and I think even some of these things I'm like, wow, I could do that maybe. I was thinking as you were talking about the caroling and being like, I wonder who I could go and just show up randomly at their house and carol for them, or and share with them my gratefulness for seeing Christ in them. So.
And there's so many cultural things too, And that too, we have so many beautiful things going on in our diocese, posadas, and, just different ways to go and see different communities culturally celebrate this coming of Christ. And if you can go on the diocesan website and find out some of those too, they are very moving to see the other ways that Christ has been depicted. And, a posada is, a beautiful Our Lady Guadalupe this month, to go to
Mañanitas.
Mañanitas, early in the morning.
Yes, the early mornings.
But to take your families to one of those, go and learn how to make tamales, go and, just some, and many times too, I think our traditions, food over the holidays, for, tamales, the way we bake cookies, we have a lot of, traditions that have come through our families. And I think that's another great way for families to gather, to do those type of things together as well, just time together.
We hope that you have a wonderful Advent, and we're going to continue to walk with you this Advent season. And
yes.
I'm sure you'll hear my preaching homilies come up, or my preaching points come up here and there on the four-part part of Advent. But we just hope that you have a wonderful Advent, a meaningful one, a deep one that's rejuvenating for you and restoring, especially a hope.
Yeah.
A hope in Jesus. Yeah.
The weary world rejoices.